Your experience in Hong Kong is pretty unique. When you, I would love to know when you were in the edit for this film, how hard was it to look back at all these things that had happened, and was it difficult to kind of look back and reflect on just kind of a weird situation that you were in? I think everything was so, you don't see that happen to people, and I'd love to know when you were in the edit, what were you thinking of? What have I captured? What do I have here?
So I think that one's a great question, and two, I would have to give an enormous amount of credit to my producer-editor, Carlos Rivera, because while I was in Hong Kong, I was editing what I thought the movie would be, and the truth is I spent 10 months in Hong Kong shooting and editing, and I thought I was editing a film about art. I just figured I would find a way to tell it. And when I came back from Hong Kong, I feel like the best way to describe what I had in terms of the timeline, in terms of the edit, was an assembly. It was like a direction for the film, but when Carlos saw it, he said, listen, there's a much better movie here, but we're gonna have to tell the story of the movie. We're gonna tell the story of how you made it, what you were trying to make, and what you were going through. Because this, he looked at my thing and very generously was like, this isn't maybe working as good as it could be. And for the next, it took us we were in the edit for a healthy amount of time, and that process, Carlos played mostly editor, but also therapist. And it was him engaging me, saying like, hey, what happened in this moment? What was actually going on? Why did you make that choice? And forced me to redirect, and not my instinct was to be that personal. That came from a shared collaboration and a deep relationship. We've known each other for years. So he was able to say, like, I know there's more going on here. You have to be honest about that.
So now that you've seen it, and how cathartic was that process then for you?
Therapy is not, it's not just a flippant response. Like, it was a very emotional experience, and helped me process both what I'd gone through and what I was going through, because the motivation to make the film, honestly, it came from this moment. Yeah, the motivation to make the film was an emotional motivation, and I was burying that in the work and excavating that and putting that into the movie and sharing that experience, so that when you watch the film, you get a sense of my emotional state, was absolutely cathartic.
As far as the audience reaction to it, because I think when you watch the trailer, you may be like, I'm not understanding what's going on, but when you get to see the full perspective, how have audiences reacted to the journey you went on, and is it surprised you any bit about how they have reacted?
Well, so what's been really reassuring is that there was one person came to me after the film and mentioned, they were like, watching it, I thought it was a documentary, so I was expecting these things, and when these things didn't happen, I got kind of frustrated. And once I let go of that and just accepted the movie for the experience, I came to understand it. And I think that sort of encapsulated exactly how we sort of hope the movie's received. Because the movie, the way you're supposed to make a documentary is very clear. I've actually done that professionally for years. Carlos does that professionally for years. And we wanted to see if you had to. Like, the rules of a documentary are actually just a thing that really happened. So could we use the language of film and the language of narrative filmmaking and fiction filmmaking to convey the emotional truth of a real experience? And understanding that, it makes the film easier to receive. And what we found is that the people who connect with it very deeply. And given how personal the movie is, it's a little bit like showing up on Christmas with my handmade thing. I hope you like it. Like, it didn't cost a lot, but it's lovely. And having someone appreciate that is enormous.
When did you guys decide to use the particular voice that carries the film,
right,
and that perspective, second person?
So her name is Alice, and what originally happened is when I was assembling that edit in Hong Kong, I was working in a shared office space, and I would have ordinarily recorded my own temp VO, but that would have required me to tell everyone in the room to be quiet as I sat there and stumbled through my words and tried to find the right pronunciation. And that wasn't an option. So I found the text-to-speech program as a way to quickly lay down track and then make adjustments. But as I was building the edit, and then as Carlos was building the edit, we started tweaking, and she became embedded in the voice and the rhythm. Because learning to speak robot was a real part of the process. You have to, she doesn't pronounce words the way you're supposed to, so you have to learn, okay, double space here, ... that, capitalize this. And then we started to get a sense of her sense of humor. And then it became a really fun tool to explore how it could elevate the scene by being so off kilter. And what we really came to love, the thing that I really connected with, why ultimately it stayed in the film, is, and this speaks to the second person as well, it reinforced the sense of alienation and otherness that I felt living a year abroad where, I moved to a country where I didn't know anybody. Like, yes, I spoke one of the primary languages of that place, but the simple things of living in a place like Hong Kong, every time, there are several shots in the movie where you'll see me cross the street and I'll look down and the camera will look down and you'll see an arrow where it says in English and in Chinese, look this way. And Hong Kong has so many tourists that they literally paint on the street, cars come in this direction in this country, wherever you're from, just know that in here, a car's, so look over there. And the fact that they have to paint that. In Dallas, I don't have to worry, right? I don't live in Dallas, but I come here and I know which way the cars are coming. And in Hong Kong, I'm always like, wait a minute, I might get run over because I think I'm looking in the right direction. And that kind of unsteadiness that comes when you're not in your home culture, when your basic assumptions of how you're supposed to navigate the world are gone, you feel a little outside yourself. And that the voice was a way to personify that and share that. That way I didn't have to explain that to you, but when you watch the movie, you're like, man, I feel a little outside myself. And I think, speaking to your earlier point about the people who, how they're receiving the movie, the ones who are willing to embrace that and not see that as a mistake, they're like, wow, I felt a little uncomfortable. Exactly.
And it does it so well. Alice is such an amazing character in it, so thank you for that choice.
I'll be sure to let her know.
Yeah. ... I've got to ask, how have you changed as a filmmaker because of going through this whole process?
Okay, that's a great question. I think partly there are two answers to that. One is, as a filmmaker who went through the process of being that self-sufficient, of going to Hong Kong with a camera and a laptop and making the film on the resources that I had. One, I was able to strip away the things that you think you need. I actually think that bleeds perfectly into the other answer, which is there's a lot of accepted wisdom of how movies are supposed to work. And one of the challenges we had that we embraced on this film was, what if we did the opposite? And what if we made it work also? And I think sometimes we were successful, sometimes it was more of a challenge, but the idea that when you do a documentary, you're supposed to interview people, you're supposed to, you have the conversation, you cut out the bits you don't like, then you add footage that shows what they're talking about, then you add music on the bottom, and then you're done. And that's a documentary, and that's what they're supposed to look like. And what if we didn't do any of that and still made a documentary? And there are all sorts of modes of making a documentary, so the question of what if we tried the opposite and pulled it off was revelatory, because it opens up all the other assumptions you make in your life and your career, and you think, maybe this isn't the only way to do it.
Can we talk about the title? Did you have any other titles other than this one, or did you, when you came across this, you thought, this works?
So the movie was officially known as Untitled Hong Kong Art Basel Project for a while. What happened is, so you've seen the film, my apartment was not generously sized. And one of the ways that I spent my time in Hong Kong when I didn't have to be in the apartment, when I wasn't sleeping, is I would ride the city buses around, one as sort of a free tour, and free, $1.50, whatever it cost. I would take the trip around Hong Kong, but I would also have the luxury of a climate-controlled space, the ample room of the back seat on the double-decker bus. And in the very back of every Hong Kong city bus, there is a poster that says in English and in Chinese, it's emergency exit. And it says, leave the bus through the broken window in English. And then, from what I've been told, is an equally mealy-mouthed Chinese version of that phrase. And I remember finding it and kind of flippantly joking on social media that this was going to be the title of my memoir. And at some point that aligned when the movie became that deeply personal and ceased to be a film entirely about the art community and much more a film about my experience in the art community. That title just felt like the only correct choice.
Have you gotten any backlash from the art community that you didn't get to make a film about art?
Well, so the artists in it, many of them have been involved in the process. So like I showed edits and they would watch the edits and they'd give notes and I took those notes. That had a lot to do with how we shaped it. Not many have seen this final version, but we are planning screenings in Hong Kong and we'll have that. So, no, what's been interesting is instead of trying to dissect the art, I think what's been appreciated is the idea that we were trying to communicate to the art. So it's about my response to their art rather than me saying why their art is good or why it's not or what it's sold for, which is what art documentaries tend to be.
So there are hopes of going to show this in Hong Kong.
Absolutely.
When you go back to Hong Kong, do you hope to film anything more or anything like that?
No, I feel like that is an excellent question. I have not thought of that at all. My hope is no. My hope is that this movie is done. There is a sequel in mind, but the sequel is not about me in the art world. The sequel is actually about my life in the couple of years since.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to see that. I've got to ask, is that something legitimately you're working on now?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, very cool. Are you looking to do it as a feature, or is it short? I mean, how much?
So the idea is,
You don't have to give anything away.
I don't mind giving it away. I'll tell you off camera. But I feel like right now there's a new project that I'm working on that is in the same mode. I feel like there's something, I unlocked something with this personal storytelling that I'm really interested in exploring, and I feel like there's another movie in my near future about historical family trauma and romantic love.
Wow.
I can tell you the title of the film, and it's Loneliness is a Traveling Partner.
Okay. I think for those that see the film, I think they'll get a little bit more with that title than those that haven't. I'd love to know when you found out that you were going to be here at Dallas, what was your reaction? And obviously, James and Daniel embraced this film. What does that mean to you to know that film festivals are getting that this is something different and new and fresh, and there is viability to it because of that?
I mean, it almost feels, I mean, the thing that when we made this film, we made it just, first I spent almost a year and a half alone working on this project. And then when Carlos and I started working together, it was another 2.5 years of just us incubating this thing, hoping there would be a response. And we have not played, let me pause you. I'm assuming you're editing some of this?
A little bit, yeah.
Well, because like this moment of like, that's a great question. The feeling of, it's like excessive, it feels like we did it when because there's always a doubt, like, hey, we're trying something, we're totally out there in what we're supposed to do or what's expected of us as filmmakers. So to be accepted here at Dallas, to play at South by, to play at CPH Docs in Copenhagen, which are the only festivals we played so far, but they're all festivals that we've loved and admired before coming. So to know that the people we love also enjoy the film is like, okay, I feel like we're doing something right. Because we took a risk with the film just in making it, in the way we made it. So to know that it's enjoyable, that it's broadly accessible, despite its sort of left field choices, is huge. Because it's the real indicator that I think, I think the goal of an artist is always you want to be able to communicate. I think there's a lot about creation that's really fun and self-involved, but at the same time, especially with a movie as deeply personal as this one, the risk is in talking only to yourself. And frankly, it was when Dallas said, hey, we'd love to show it, that's when you know that you're actually communicating.
Where can people keep up with the film, keep following what your journey is with it, and then hopefully the next film will be as similar, but can you tell the folks how they can follow?
Yeah, well, so you can follow me on Twitter at Andrew_Hevia. And you can also go to leavethebusfilm.com, where we keep updates, we post where we're screening, and we have a newsletter sign up.
Very cool. Andrew, thank you for you and Carlos coming together and coming up with something completely different, because I think it's brilliant. It's something I think when people see it, it's going to be a visual experience. You created something fresh. So congrats, it's amazing.
Thank you very much.